webinar series and this respectable speaker.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another session of Science Chronicles. We're so glad to have you join us for what promises to be a fascinating and insightful session. This webinar is organized by IPKI in collaboration with the EcoScience Foundation. For those of you who are new here, the EcoScience Foundation is a specialized agency of the Economic Cooperation Organization, an intergovernmental entity with 10 member states, including Afghanistan, Azerbaijan, Iran, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Turkey, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. Its mandate is to promote science, technology, and innovation among the ECO member countries. IPKI is an organization committed to making the world a better place by promoting science education, fostering intellectual curiosity, and bridging gaps in access to quality learning opportunities. In today's session, we invite you on a journey through time and space as we explore humanity's enduring fascination with the night sky. From ancient myths to modern telescopes, the stars have long sparked our imagination. And today's talk promises to illuminate both the historical and scientific aspects of this cosmic curiosity. Our speaker today is Shahryar Khan, a passionate science communicator with a background in physics from Quaid-e-Azam University, Islamabad. Shahryar has previously worked at the Black Hole, Islamabad, as a science lab instructor and head of the Astronomy Club, where he led engaging stargazing sessions and public lectures. He is currently pursuing a master's degree in physics at Bilkent University, Turkey. His research interests span from cosmology and chaos theory to condensed matter physics, and he is equally drawn to the philosophical dimension of science with a keen interest in mathematics and neuroscience. With his rich blend of academic insight and public outreach experience, Shahryar will walk us through the origins of constellations, demonstrate how to navigate the night sky, and introduce us to Stellarium, a powerful open source tool for amateur astronomy. Please join me in welcoming Shahryar Khan.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me? Fine.
Yes.
Okay, let me start then. So welcome everybody, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to share with you some of my knowledge on astronomy and stargazing. I hope this will be useful for all of you. So the title of this talk is Trek Through the Stars, a guided tour of the night sky. So this is the outline of our talk. So first of all, we will discuss what are constellations, some of the myths behind some of the constellations, how we can locate the constellations based on our latitude, and constellations for navigation using stellarium. Okay. So what are constellations basically? So this is a complete chart of all of the constellations. So constellation, imagine a constellation. So there are two ways to look at a constellation. First is the historical way in which the ancients used to look at constellations, and that was as a kind of imprint of their mythology on the night sky. Because every ancient culture had a very, very strong mythology with which they understood and interacted with the world. So it was only natural that they would try to understand the night sky as well using their mythological narratives. So every different culture has had different kinds of constellations. The constellations, most of the constellations we are familiar with now come from the Greek civilization, such as the Cancer constellation, Scorpius constellation, Taurus constellation, and so on. These days, we recognize 88 different constellations, as stated here. So the International Astronomical Union in 1928 agreed upon 88 constellations. And these are just like how we divide up the land of the earth and the waters of the earth into oceans and countries, not only for political reasons, but also for ease of understanding, so we can locate different things. Similarly, we divide up the night sky into various sections, and we will see this when I demonstrate the Stellarium software as well, how these constellations are shaped. So most of the constellations out of these 88 were named by the Greeks. Around 48 of these constellations were named by the Greeks, but since Greece is located in the northern hemisphere, they didn't have access to the constellations at near the South Pole, for example, very, very far south. So as exploration expanded and humans traveled further closer to the South Pole, we realized that there are many, many more constellations that can be seen in the northern hemisphere only. after which more constellations were included into the list. And eventually, right now, have agreed upon 88 different constellations. So just think of constellations as a way to divide up the night sky for ease of locating various objects. So, for example, when we talk about the central supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way, have you ever wondered why we call it Sagittarius A star? So we call it A star because it is a very, very the brightest object in that area. And we term it Sagittarius because the location of the black hole in terms of our location in the night sky is in the Sagittarius constellation. That's why we term it Sagittarius. And similarly for the Andromeda galaxy. Okay. So these are some of the northern constellations. So let me first tell you about the geometry that we are dealing with, for example. So uh, if you are on the equator, imagine yourself on the equator, you will be able to see all of the constellations in the night sky as the Earth revolves around its axis. But if you are further up north or further down south, then some of the constellations will be limited from your view. Some of the constellations, as the Earth revolves, will never be able to come into your field of view. And as you go closer and closer to the North Pole or the South Pole, the number of constellations that you can see will decrease further and further. So these are some of the constellations that are like primarily termed as the northern constellations. So if you are in the northern hemisphere like we are, these are the constellations that you can see. And someone who is very, very far down south will not be able to see these constellations, such as Andromeda and Leo and Camelopardalis, Draco, Perseus, and so on. Similarly, if a person is living very, very far down south, like somewhere in Australia or New Zealand, then these are the constellations that he will be able to see primarily. And he won't be able to see the constellations that are very, very far up north. So as you can see, we are more familiar with the constellations here since we are in the northern hemisphere as opposed to here. And someone who is living on the equator will be able to see almost all of the constellations. But these are the constellations that he can see most clearly, such as Aquarius, Aries, Cancer, and so on. So these constellations over here are located in such a place that almost anyone on Earth can see these constellations. So these are called mixed hemisphere constellations. So they are neither too far up north, neither nor too far down south. They are somewhere in the middle. So almost everyone can be able to see these constellations at some time of the year. And these constellations include Taurus, Scorpius, Virgo, Aquarius, Aries, Cancer, Canis Major, Canis Minor. So, as I stated previously, so at the equator, nearly all 88 constellations are visible. Both the northern and southern constellations can be seen between 0 and 30 degrees north. In cities like, for example, Cairo, Miami, Delhi, most northern constellations are visible year round, while southern constellations near the celestial equator are also frequently seen, but the deep, deep southern constellations cannot be seen. And if you go even farther up north, then constellations like Ursa Major, Cassiopeia, and Draco are visible year round, and some equatorial constellations can be seen. But like some southernmost constellations like Centaurus and Crux are generally not visible. And when you go even farther up north, like close to the North Pole, like Oslo, Moscow, and Anchorage in Alaska, here the circumpolar constellations are mostly seen, like Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, Cepheus. So these are the constellations that appear to be revolving around the North Star, the Polaris. And these include like Cassiopeia, Ursa Major, Ursa Minor. Minor is also used for navigation purposes. And like if you go down south, then for like normal latitudes down south, 0 and 30 degrees, for example, Sao Paulo, Brazil, Johannesburg in South Africa, and Sydney in Australia, you will be able to see constellations like Crux, Centaurus, and Carina. And some equatorial will also be visible because you are not that far down south. like Orion and Gemini. And if you go even farther down south, then like the northernmost constellations, like for example, Cassiopeia, Ursa Major, these will not be visible for you. So like the point is that your latitude matters a lot. You can't see every single constellation if you're not on the equator. So since we are not on the equator, we can only see a finite limited number of the total number of constellations, 88. And using Stellarium, we can input our location into that software and we can figure out like which constellations are visible and when they can be visible. So we don't have to remember which constellation will be visible when. We can just use that software. And these are some of the very famous constellations that almost everybody knows about. And these are based on the so imagine the 3D sphere of all of the constellations, 88 constellations, like spanning a 3D surface around the Earth. In this sphere, there is a special line, a special circle through which the sun moves. And this is the equatorial plane basically, because we are in a solar system is flat. So from our perspective, the sun seems to be going around us from our perspective. And the sun is tracing out a line in this entire 3D sphere. And as it traces out this circle in that 3D sphere, the sun, it passes through a certain set of constellations, which are 13 in number. So according to Greek mythology, the sun is a very, very important object. It gives life, and almost every mythology, the sun is considered to be a very, very important object or a god. So since the sun passes through these constellations were elevated above the others just for like cultural reasons. So these are the 13 constellations, and for some reason, one of this constellation, Ophiuchus, on the right side, this was excluded from the list of the zodiac, but it is still there. So these are the uh, 12 or 13 constellations of the zodiac. So this is how the zodiac constellations are like selected out of the 88. And as you can see, if you are, for example, on the Earth in the for example, if you're on the Earth in the northern hemisphere on March 21 at the bottom, then you won't be able to see the constellations at the top like Aries and Aquarius and Pisces because the sun is in the way. So during daytime, your daytime, these Capricorn, Aquarius, Taurus, Gemini, these constellations will be invisible to you because the sun is blocking them out. So if you are on the northern hemisphere on March, for example, during night time, constellations such as Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpius, only these will be visible. And conversely, if you are on the northern hemisphere on the opposite side of the cycle on September 21, then you won't be able to see Virgo or Leo or Libra or Scorpius or Cancer because they are there during the daytime. So it's impossible to see them. So at that time of the year, only constellations like Taurus, Aries, Pisces, Aquarius, Capricornus will be visible to you. And using this diagram, you can figure out if you are trying to locate the zodiac constellations, like which constellation you will be able to see based on whether you are on the northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, and which time of the year it is. And the locations of these constellations are constantly shifting also due to the precession of the Earth. So the Earth is also precessing. Just like, for example, when you spin a top or a Beyblade, for example, and when its angular momentum falls below a certain value, it starts to wobble. So the Earth is also wobbling like this. It's not just spinning on the axis. The axis itself is also rotating at a very, very slow rate. So it completes one rotation in 26,000 years. So as the axis rotates, the constellations also shift forward in the opposite direction of the precession. So this is one reason why astrology has been debunked as a pseudoscience, because the arrangement of the constellations according to the Greeks was different from the arrangement of the constellations that we have now due to the precession of the Earth. So let's go into some of the myths behind the constellations. So like you may have wondered, like where do all of these names come from? So remember that uh, the names that we give to most of these constellations, like Perseus and Cancer and Taurus, etc., these are all Greek names. Other cultures have selected the constellations in a different way, and they have different names for the constellations. But since like Western civilization arose out of the Greek civilization, they took those names, and was basically this list of constellations like Taurus, Perseus, etc. This was listed by Ptolemy, the guy who first like presented the geocentric model of the solar system in a very rigorous form in his famous book, The Almagest. So in that same book, he gives the names of all of these constellations and their patterns and their locations as well. So that book has had a very major influence on Western civilization. So that's where most of our names come from. But the southern constellation, for example, which the Greeks didn't have access to, they were given different names, which were not based on the Greek gods. They were based on names of animals, for example, like Camelopardalis, which is the scientific name for the giraffe, and for example, names of scientific instruments. But the most famous constellations that we're familiar with all come from Greek mythology. So let me just discuss some of them, not all of them, because like we don't have enough time. So some of you may have seen some movies on this as well. Perseus is a very famous hero in Greek mythology. He was the son of Zeus and a human, and he had a human mother. So like he was considered a demigod in Greek mythology, and he was a great hero in Greek mythology. He was able to uh, kill the a very dangerous like monster in Greek mythology called Medusa, who was a gorgon with snakes on her head. And he was also able to kill a sea monster like the Kraken, and this monster's name was Cetus. So it so happened that uh, there was a king uh, whose name was Cepheus, and he had a daughter, and obviously he had a wife as well. So this the queen of that city, she basically claimed that herself and her daughter were more beautiful than the daughters of Poseidon. So this angered Poseidon a lot, and he sent forth a huge monster, Cetus, to destroy that city because the queen and the princess were arrogant enough to claim that they were more beautiful than the daughters of the god. So when Cetus was devastating the city, Perseus came along and used the head of Medusa, which he had killed, to uh, like turn the monster into stone and hence defeat the monster. So this is a very very famous story, and movies have been made about this as well, and all of these characters are very famous. So you may have heard of the names of these constellations on the right hand side, like Perseus, Pegasus, Andromeda. We have an Andromeda galaxy as well because it is located in the section of the Andromeda constellation. That's why we call it the Andromeda galaxy. Cassiopeia, Cetus, Cepheus. So these are literally all characters from a very, very famous Greek story, Greek legend. On the left, you can see a statue of Perseus holding the head of the Gorgon Medusa who he had slayed. And on the right, you see Perseus in the middle on this pot, and Princess Andromeda on the right hand side, and the monster on the left hand side. So this is a very, very famous story. So the Greeks, they wanted to immortalize their stories, and hence they named some of the constellations on the characters of these stories. And they also tended to place them close together, these characters, so that whenever those constellations appeared, people were reminded of that story, because like the night skies of those ancient times weren't as polluted as we have now, so they were able to see almost every single star if it was not cloudy. So whenever these constellations appeared for them in the northern hemisphere, and they had so placed them so they were close to each other. So Perseus and Cassiopeia and Cetus and Cepheus constellations are placed relatively close to each other. So they were immediately reminded of that story. So it was a kind of cultural thing for them as well. This is another famous painting of the same. So, and similarly, you may have heard of the legend of Hercules. So, a lot of the famous constellations that we already know, like Leo, Taurus, Cancer, these are also literally characters from the legend of Hercules. And Hercules, or Heracles, as he was named by the Greeks, Hercules is a Roman name. It's not really accurate. He was actually called Heracles. So he was also a very famous character, son of Zeus and another, and but had a human mother, so he was a demigod, and he was also obviously a half brother of Perseus because they are the same father. So in another famous story of the Greeks believe the Milky Way formed is so like when Hercules was born, he was born a naturally very strong fellow. So since Zeus like so since Hercules was born out by Hercules, by Zeus, like having a relationship with a human mother, human person, like a female. So this made Zeus's actual wife, the goddess Hera, very jealous because Zeus was always going around having relations with like all kinds of people. So when Hercules was born, Zeus's actual wife Hera got very jealous and she wanted to like kill Hercules as soon as he was born. So so there is a very famous story. So as you can see in this statue, when Zeus was born and he was in his cradle, Hera sent forth two or three snakes to bite the baby Hercules and kill him. But since Hercules was extremely strong, he just grabbed the snakes with his two hands and crushed them to death. So Hera was have failed in that regard. So afterwards, the mother of Hercules, since she realized that Hercules was in grave danger, the gods were after him. So she placed Hercules in the middle of some secluded forest so that nobody was able to find him. And she left him there. After a while, another goddess, the hunter goddess Artemis, she found Hercules and took him to Hera herself, not knowing who he was. Hera herself initially didn't recognize who Hercules was. So, taking pity on the little crying child, she started to breastfeed him because he was hungry and he was crying. But since this is Hercules we are talking about, so he immediately bit Hera when she was breastfeeding him. And this spilled some of her milk across the heavens, and that is how the Greeks thought the Milky Way formed, and that is why they call it the Milky Way, because it is the spilled milk of the goddess Hera. So this is way how the Hercules story comes into like the some of one of the important names in astronomy, Milky Way. So as Hercules grew up, his problems never ended because the goddess Hera was always against him. So a king Eurystheus, he tasked Hercules with 12 very difficult labors, and he said that you have to do these tasks if you want to live. So the so like for example, the first of these tasks that Hercules was tasked with was slaying the Nemean lion. So these are the 12 labors on this side. And here you can see, I think, where is the lion? Somewhere here. Over here in the bottom left corner of this painting, you can see Hercules wrestling with a lion and a club is placed over there as well. So there was a city in ancient Greece called Nemea, and according to legend, there was a very big lion, huge lion terrorizing the city, and he was called the Nemean lion. So Hercules was sent by King Eurystheus to slay that lion because nobody was able to control him. So Hercules went in there. He first started to shoot arrows at the lion, but the lion's hide was so strong that the arrows had no effect. It was almost as if the lion's hide was made of bronze. So Hercules then tried to wrestle the lion, and pushed it into the lion's cave and then hit it on the head with his club, which stunned the lion, and then immediately Hercules killed the lion. And afterwards, he cut out the skin of the lion and wore it as a robe and went back to the king and told him, here you go, I have slayed the lion. So this is the lion after which the constellation Leo is named. Leo, the famous constellation, which is one of the zodiac constellations as well. This is named after the Nemean lion that Hercules slayed as this first labor. Similarly, Taurus. So Taurus is represented by a cow or a bull, right? So this was another like huge creature in the city of Crete. So Crete is a very famous city. You may have heard of it in ancient Greece. probably still there. And according to legend, there was a huge bull terrorizing the city, and as usual, Hercules was sent for to control that beast. So he went there and he was able to easily subdue that beast, and he didn't kill the bull because the bulls are useful. So he just carried it on its back and brought it to the king. And so this bull is also very, very famous. And this bull actually, in another story, this led to the birth of the Minotaur as well. The Minotaur is a very famous character in Greek mythology. So this Cretan bull is what the constellation of Taurus is named after. Similarly, Cancer is represented by a crab, right? A crab is also a character in one of these stories of Hercules, which Hercules manages to kill. That is where the constellation of Cancer comes from. And similarly, Hydra and Draco constellation is named after a 100-headed dragon that Hercules was able to kill as one of his labors, and so on and so forth. So there are, I can go into all of these stories, but like we will get a bit long. So like on this left hand side, you can see all 12 of labors of Hercules, like pictured over here. Okay. And this is Hercules and his nephew uh, killing the Hydra. So there is a constellation Hydra as well, which is named after this beast. This beast was called the Hydra, and the special property of this beast was that if you cut off one head, three more would take their place. So it was impossible to kill this dragon apparently. But like when eventually Hercules realized that if you cut off one of the heads and immediately cauterize that wound with fire with a hot object, then a further heads wouldn't grow from the neck. So he employed the help of his nephew. He destroyed one head, and his nephew immediately cauterized the wound, and then he was able to kill the Hydra. So these are very, very famous stories, and to commemorate Hercules and his great achievements, the ancient Greeks named many of the constellations. Like a lot of the constellations are named after the exploits of Hercules. This is another famous story. So on the right hand side, you can see Prometheus. So many of you may have seen the movie Oppenheimer, which was released like I think year or two ago. So Oppenheimer was termed the American Prometheus because Prometheus was a god, like I think he was a titan or a giant or a god who went into Olympus, the home of the gods, and he stole fire from there and brought it to the humans. And according to the Greeks, that is how humans got fire because of Prometheus. But since Prometheus had stolen something from Olympus, Zeus got angered, and he punished Prometheus by chaining him to the top of a mountain and condemning him to eternity for his liver to be eaten every day by an eagle. So an eagle would come in every day, devour his liver, and then go off, and then the liver would regrow, and the next day the same thing would happen. So that was his torture for eternity. So when Hercules was going off on one of his labors, he encountered Prometheus and he helped Prometheus, and then Prometheus showed him the way on his quest. And the arrow that so like this eagle, the word for eagle in Greek is Aquila. So the Aquila constellation is named after this eagle. And like these elements, so now you can see how like some of these constellations are named from various stories. And this is a famous painting by Jacopo Tintoretto showing how the Milky Way was formed, like according to the Greeks, the story behind it. Like this is Hera and Hercules, and yeah. And yeah, finally, I want to discuss Orion the Hunter. So Orion is a very, very distinctive constellation that anyone can recognize. These three stars in a row. So as you can see, so this is called the Orion belt. So as you can see on the right hand side in this image, there are three stars, three circles on the belt of Orion, and these can be very easily seen during the winters, December, January, the Orion constellation. And I have like conducted viewing sessions of this. So if you zoom in into the Orion belt, you can be able to see the Orion Nebula as well, which is a fuzzy, hazy kind of a structure, which can be seen with a normal telescope as well, located around 1400 light years from the Earth. and which is a nursery for new stars. So it is a very, very active star forming region, and the Hubble's telescope, and it is like one of our like most important examples in astronomy when we were trying to figure out how stars form, because it is probably the nearest and biggest, one of the biggest nebulae where stars are actively forming. So when the Hubble Space Telescope was launched, it was pointed at the Orion Nebula, so that we could be able to figure out how stars form. So this is a very, very important object in astronomy as well. And since this is located in the Orion constellation, that's why we termed the nebula as the Orion Nebula. And it is located somewhere inside the Orion belt, and you have to locate it. There are other stars over here as well. So where does this Orion come from in mythology? So in Greek mythology, Orion was the most famous hunter in Greek mythology, and he was also a giant. He was not really a human. So Orion was so good at hunting that the goddess of hunting herself, Artemis, used to accompany him on hunting trips, whereas she would never deign to go off on a hunting trip with anyone other than a god or a goddess. So one time when Orion and Artemis were hunting together, Orion got so self-confident that he boasted that he has the ability to kill any living creature on earth. This was heard by Gaia, the mother earth, the mother goddess of all the earth, mother of all creation. And she was very, very upset by this, because every creature on earth, living creature on earth, is offspring of Gaia. So she sent forth a huge scorpion to kill Orion. And this scorpion was successful in killing Orion. This is the scorpion after which the Scorpius constellation is named. Scorpio, as you know, is one of the zodiac constellations as well. So this is the scorpion in mythology after which the Scorpio constellation is named, Scorpius constellation. And Orion, when after he died, he was also transferred into the heavens by the gods to commemorate him. Not really commemorate him. I think there was also like another thing happening there, because Orion had boasted to the gods, and the gods never took boasting very lightly, and they always punish people very, very severely if they're thought too highly of themselves. So since Orion had boasted in front of the gods, so they transferred him into the heavens, and according to legend, they placed his hunting dog Canis Major. So Canis Major Canis Major, literally it means the big dog, Canis Major, and Canis Minor means the small dog or fox. You can interpret it as the fox as well. So Orion was always accompanied on his hunting trips by his hunting dog. So when the gods placed Orion in the sky, they placed his hunting dog close by as well, because like he would always go out with his hunting dog. But the gods also place the constellation Lepus very, very close to Orion. And the hare, well, Lepus means basically a rabbit or a hare, which is placed very, very close to Orion. So since Orion had boasted to the gods that he had the ability to kill any creature on earth, they placed the hare very, very close to him. And since every object in the night sky rotates at the same rate, as the sky revolves, Orion will never be able to catch up with the hare, which he is supposed to kill. So that was one way of the gods to show Orion who the real boss is, that he can't be able to kill every living creature that he boasted about. The hare is just within arm's reach, and he will always be chasing the hare round and round the earth and never be able to catch it. So that is an interesting story of why the Greeks placed Lepus close to Orion. And whenever these constellations appeared in the night sky and people knew about these stories as well, they would be reminded of the lesson that one should not boast in life. And so these are the three stars on his belt, and there are two stars representing the arms of Orion and two stars representing the feet of Orion. And the names of some of these stars are also interesting because they have Arabic roots, like Rigel, which is located on the top left arm of Orion. So that comes from the Arabic phrase Rijal al-Jabbar, hand of the great one, I think. And the bottom left star in Orion constellation is named Saf, which is literally the Arabic name for sword, Saf. And there is another star, I think, on the right, bottom right side of Orion, Betelgeuse, which is derived from the Arabic phrase Yad al Jawza, foot of the Great One. So you can go, it's a very interesting rabbit hole of going into the Arabic names of the constellations as well. Because after the Greeks, as you know, most of science in the world was done in the Islamic civilization during the golden age of Islam. So the Islamic astronomers, they like furthered astronomy a lot during the golden age. And so we still see vestiges of the Islamic influence on in modern astronomy, mostly with the names of various objects which have clearly have Arabic roots. This is Orion, Betelgeuse, Rigel, Bellatrix, Ceph, Orion's belt. So this is visible in December, January in the northern hemisphere during the winters. Yeah, this is a diagram I added about the precession because right now we are in the direction as shown, but over the course of 13,000 years we will be on the opposite side. And at that time, our North Star will not no longer be Polaris, but it will be Vega on the left hand side. And when this has happened, the constellations will also have shifted by like 6 steps because there are total 12 constellations. So after 13,000 years, the zodiac signs that we are told about that this time of the month corresponds to this star, this time of the month corresponds to this star will be completely in error. And this has already happened, by the way, because since the time of the Greeks, around 2000 years have passed, right? Around 2000 years. So 2000 years is around 1/13th of 26,000 years, right? And there are around 13 constellations in the zodiac. So this means that since the time of the Greeks, we have moved backward in the constellations by 1 step. So whereas someone like me who was born on 29th August would have been a Virgo if I was born during the time of the Greeks, right now, according to the positions of the constellations now, I'm supposed to be a Leo because all of the constellations have shifted back 1 step, and this applies to everyone. So whatever star sign you have been told you are since birth, you are actually the one before that because the Earth has precessed since the time of the Greeks by one constellation sign. So this is a major blow to astrology. So let me go into Stellarium now. So if you want to download Stellarium, this is an open source, completely free software. Just type Stellarium into Google, and this is the first link that will appear. Go into this link, Stellarium Astronomy Software, and then this page will appear. And at the top of the page, you can see according to which kind of operating system you have and which kind of Windows you have. You can click on that and download it and just install it simply. And it's a very easy process. So whatever kind of system you have, OS or Windows or whatever. If you don't want to download it on your computer, then there is a Stellarium web option as well, which opens on your browser. And there is a free Stellarium app that you can download on your mobile phones as well, which has most of the same functionality, not all, as the desktop app. Okay, so let me open up Stellarium. Can you see this?
Uh, yes, now.
Hmm. Okay. So as you can see, there is a they have this is a default landscape that you will see when you open up Stellarium. So on the bottom left side, you can see there is a random location over here. So we can change this location by going on the left hand side, the sidebar, or you can press F6 as well. Go into the location window, and here you can change it to whatever your location is. So I will change it to my location, Ankara, or let me change it to my real location, Kayseri. Let's say this is my location actually. So I've changed it to here. So like since I've told you, as I've told you that it depends heavily what you see on your latitude, etc. Now you can change the date and time as well. So interesting thing about Stellarium is you can go as far into the future as you want, far into the past as you want, and they have I don't know like what is the range they have set like for the future and the past, but you can go pretty far. And if you want to look at important historical events, if you want to like go into the look at the supernova, for example, which happened in 1059, you can go there by just putting in the year. And you can go into the future as well. If you read somewhere in an article that some kind of solar eclipse will happen in this year, then you can go to that exact date and see like in a virtual manner what you will expect given your location. So this is the current date and this is my current time, 9:46. So right now, obviously it's daytime. So I can go forward because I can't see anything except the sun during this time. So I can increase the time so that it's night. So now it's night. Okay, 10 p.m. So okay, let's look around. So like we can see some stars, Antares, this Arcturus, famous star, Vega. Okay, and some of these stars. Okay, so this ground is a bit annoying because I can't see half of the sky. So I can just press G to make the ground disappear. Now I can see the entire 360 degrees of the night sky. Okay, okay. Now if you want to see the constellations, for example, then I can just press C. If I press C, then the constellations appear. These are the constellations. And if I press R, then the diagrams of the or the art behind the constellations will also be so that it's easier for us to like recognize them. So it's a very beautiful art. You can look around. If I press V, then the names of the constellation appear. These are the English names, the translation. And if I press B, then the boundaries. So like as I told you in the beginning that the constellations are a way to divide up the night sky for ease of understanding. So this is how the modern astronomers have decided to divide up the night sky. So obviously the entire sky is covered by these boxes. So if you're looking out with a telescope and discover a new object in the night sky, then you will, if you want, then if you want to name it, then the box in which it appears will appear, should appear in that name, so that everyone else, when you tell them that, for example, this object Sagittarius A star, so he will be, if he knows about the constellations, he will be immediately able to recognize, okay, I need to look in the direction of Sagittarius. That's where I'll find that object. So it narrows down the area that you need to look for. This is just a way of locating. So just like, for example, you want to locate someone, you say he's located in Asia and Pakistan, for example. So these are various constellations. Hmm. Now, if you want to look for a certain object, because you can't just keep dragging the mouse around and looking for the object manually. Wait, let me just make this disappear. Okay. Now, if you want to look for an object, so the fourth option on the left hand side, this search option. So if you want to look for example, Jupiter, you just type it in Jupiter and it will immediately take you there. So right now, according to my latitude, so Jupiter is located here, so it's impossible for me to see Jupiter. because for me, Jupiter will appear like very close to the sun during daytime. So I can't see Jupiter during this time of the month. Let me search for another object. Let's see where the moon is. Moon is here. Okay, let's find Saturn. Saturn is here. Okay. So this is how you can like locate various objects in the night sky. Let me demonstrate. So you can let zoom in on things as well. And it will show you detail as well. Let's look at Mars. Okay, let's zoom in into Mars. See what it's doing. So now you can see, since you know that Mars has two moons, right? Phobos and Deimos. And if you keep looking at it, or if you like increase the rate of the passage of time, then you can see these moving as well. Let's increase the passage of time. Wait a second. So on the right, we have the hours. So let me go into the minutes. So as I'm increasing the minutes, you can see I'm increasing the minutes. So as you can see, they are revolving around Mars in a precise way. So using this, you can do your own calculations that how long it takes, what is the orbital period of these moons. You can figure that out using this software. Interesting project. So let's zoom back. Now let's look at the constellations again. And now let's find the sun. Here is the sun. So as I told you that the Greeks selected the zodiac constellations because according to our vantage point, the sun seems to move through these 13 constellations as the year goes by. Okay. So let's look at the motion of the sun as time increases, and then you will understand. Okay, so right now it is in the Gemini constellation, I think, according to this. Let me increase it a bit slowly. So I'm increasing the days, and as you can see, it is now going through Cancer. Now it is going through Leo. Now the sun is in Virgo. Now Libra. Now Scorpius. Sagittarius. Then this is, I think, Aquarius. This is Pisces. This one, I don't know, Pisces or something. This is Capricorn, I think. This is Taurus, Gemini. And we are back where we started, right? So, hence proven that as the year goes by, the sun only goes through these 13 constellations and no other constellation. So, you can actually demonstrate this if you want to like show someone how the zodiac constellations work. That look, the sun is going through only these constellations. It traverses through no other constellation. So that is why these constellations have a special status. Now you can go here to this option. So if you want to do astronomical calculations, for example, then this tool will give you the exact positions, right ascension, declination, magnitude, etc. of any object you like. Okay, this gives you the trajectories. Let's look at the eclipses. So if you want to like if you want to know, because like it's this information not easily accessible on the internet, like when the eclipses will happen and not always reliable, you can click here on the bottom right, calculate eclipses, and it will calculate the eclipses for you. So this is telling me that the next eclipse will happen, and it will be an annular eclipse, so like a ring type eclipse. Next total eclipse will be on 12 August 2026. And if I click on that, it will give me the details as well. Eclipse begins first contact with Earth at this latitude, longitude, and at this time around 6:30. And it will tell me where the greatest eclipse will happen. The greatest eclipse will happen at the latitude 65 and longitude 25 approximately. And so like you can figure out, and you can go further down this list, and this is telling you eclipses up till like 2037, partial eclipse, total eclipse, giving you details. And you can figure out the brightness of some of these objects as well as a function of time. So like many different things you can do. And if you have, and this is the help window, so this will give you various shortcuts that you can use, how to zoom in, how to increase the flow of time, and like how to make the ground disappear, how to make the atmosphere disappear. So if I press A, so if I press A, then everything suddenly became brighter, right? So by pressing A, I removed the atmosphere. So if the atmosphere is there as it is now, then everything is less bright because the atmosphere absorbs some of the intensity and the wavelengths of light. But since I've removed, so the sun has also become whitish. As we know that if the atmosphere is not there, the sun is not really yellow, but it is closer to being white. But if I introduce the atmosphere again, then the sun becomes the familiar yellow. So this is some of the functionality that you can use. Okay. So using these arrow buttons on the right hand side, I can increase the flow of time. If I keep clicking it, then like I can make like time flow forwards more quickly in order to see how things are changing. Okay, so like you can use this software for locating objects to see their motion with respect to time, to look at past events that have happened, and to foresee future events. So if you have a telescope and you want to plan a stargazing trip, so people use this a lot for that. So you go on this software and they see, if I want to see this constellation or this planet at this certain period of time and at this location, then what is the most appropriate time to go, and whether it will even be visible at that time. So you can use this software to figure all of that out, and you can even do complex calculations using this software. Okay, so I think that is all. If there are any questions, you can ask.
Yes, if the participants want to ask any question, they can go ahead and they can also type. So meanwhile, I would like to ask something. Like, can you do one thing, please? That if you change the location to Pakistan and maybe Islamabad, or and help me see that, so what could be seen on the night sky tonight, like on the
Okay,
night of
okay.
26.
Islamabad. Okay.
Yeah, let's choose Islamabad.
Hmm.
Say around 8 p.m., like what should we try to look at 8 p.m.?
Hmm. So let me bring back the ground.
Okay.
So above the ground, you will be able to see. So you will be able to see. Let me zoom out a bit.
Yes, please.
So the moon is there, Venus is there. Venus will dip below the horizon after a while. Jupiter and Mercury are there. Let's go back a little bit in time.
Okay.
So Jupiter and Mercury right now during these times of the month, they are like above the horizon during the daytime. So it's not possible to see Jupiter and Saturn. Uh, and
And
also they're very, very close to the sun. Due to the sun's glare, they will be blocked. And Venus is also very, very close to the sun at this time, at this location. So,
any
okay.
constellations that we would be able to see tonight?
Yeah, okay. Let's look at the constellation. Let's press C
Okay.
and the names. Hmm. So, as you can see the Scorpion constellation in the southeast direction. You can check out the Scorpion close to the moon. So as you can see on the right hand side, the moon,
Right.
and there are three stars, the tips of the Scorpion constellation close to the moon. So if you look at the moon and you can try to find if the sky is clear enough, you can try to at least you can find out the brightest star in the Scorpion constellation. This one, Antares, heart of the Scorpion. So Antares is a famous star. If you're able to
Yeah.
locate Antares, then you have found the Scorpion constellation, for example. Apart from that, let's see. Here is the Leo constellation over here towards the west. You will be able to see the Leo constellation, this one. Ursa Major is here, Great Bear. Ursa Minor. So Ursa Minor looks like this kind of a saucepan kind of a shape, this Ursa Minor, little bear. And if you can figure out the shape of this, then just follow along the tail of this Ursa Major, and the last star on this tail, this is Polaris. So this is how you can use this for navigation, that look towards the north and try to find this kind of saucepan shape, and if you can perceive this tail of this constellation over here, and they follow along the tail, four stars on the tail. So the last star in this sequence, this will be Polaris. So this is the way you can figure out like the where north is. So as you can see, Polaris is right in the almost exactly in the north direction. So if you are lost somewhere in the northern hemisphere, you can use this to figure out the direction. So because this is a very distinctive shape, right?
Yes, indeed.
Hmm.
So there's another question in the comment. Hafsa, can you please read it so that now you carry on the question
Hmm.
answers?
Hmm.
Yeah, so the question is there a latitude range to determine whether we can see some planet or star in the sky? Like you looked up Jupiter and said you won't be able to see it at this time of the year. Why is that?
Hmm. So, planets also have a certain path and depends on the planet. So, for example, the planets that are closer to the sun than we are, uh, it is so like they will always be very, very close to the sun. And so it will be a bit difficult to see Venus and Mercury. So, if you want to look at Venus and Mercury, you will only be able to see them very, very close to sunrise and sunset. And that is why historically Venus was called the morning star or the evening star because it always seen to accompany the sun when it is rising or setting. But as for the other planets, since they are farther away from us than the sun is, they complete a complete 360 degrees orbit around us in a kind of wandering fashion. So for approximately half of the year, that given planet will not be visible because it will be on the day side. For half of the year, it will be visible. And so it depends on your location and the time of the year. Yeah. So like you can't see uh, all of the planets at every time of the year, just as you can't for stars. But the motion of planets is more complicated than that of stars. Some so the planets that are farther away from us than the sun, they also appear to show retrograde motion. So they can sometimes go back into their orbits, which happens because our orbit around the sun it overtakes their orbit, and so from our perspective, they appear to be going back. So they have a complicated motion. So you can use this, for example, let's for example check out, for example, Jupiter and see its motion. So this is Islamabad, right? So let's see its motion across the span of a year. Let me remove the ground. No, let me let the ground stay there. So as I'm increasing the day, so this is July. So now completely. So during summer months, June, July, it is below the horizon. You can't see it. Wait a second. Let's go further. November. Somewhere over there. Hmm. So now it is emerging. Okay. So around beginning of January of 2027, not before that, it will start to appear in the night sky. But still, it is very close to the horizon, so it's hard to see even in January. But if we go further, February, March, so now you can be able to see it very clearly. So if the sky is clear, you'll be able to locate it with the naked eye as well. And with your telescope, you will be able to see it in detail. So let's see. The moon just crossed it. So on this date, the moon will be too close to Jupiter, so you might not be able to see it that clearly. But the best way to see Jupiter, for example, is during a night where the moon is relatively new, so that there is very little glare from the moon and the sky is as dark as possible. So around, I think, March, beginning of March will be a good time to see Jupiter in Islamabad, and probably mid-February as well. And after that, and you can keep increasing and see like to what extent Jupiter will be visible. So it's still visible like March, April, May. Now it's going back down. So still somewhat you may be able to locate it up till June, July of 2027, but after that it will go dip back below the horizon. So similarly, you can use this software. You don't need to remember anything. Just use this software and select the object you're interested in and move it forward in time. And from there, so this is how I used to. So when I was the learning the astronomy club at the black hole, so this is how I used to like set a range of dates for certain objects. So during this range of the year, I will be able to see this object during this range, this object, and then I can conduct this event for that. For example, December, January, we will be able to see Orion and Jupiter. So I just use Stellarium beforehand to predict all of that and make a table, and then make a calendar out of that. So it's very, very easy. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shahryar. If anybody else has a question, please drop it in the chat box.
So I can see that Professor Sumro is also present here. He's the former president of ECUSF. So, sir, if you want to say something about the session.
Well, thank you, Imran Saab. It's a pleasure, listening to the talk. Obviously, I'm not an expert in this area, but it's very fascinating, and I hope that some of the participants who were there, and the number I saw was around 28, 29 or so. But some young people also, which I shared the link. I hope that they are excited and can go further to explore and learn about the whole thing. So,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
and I appreciate ECO Science Foundation for hosting this webinar. Thank you very much. That's all.
Well, and Professor Tayyibi, would you like to say something about the webinar?
I should thanks to Mr. Shahryar Khan. I couldn't follow all of presentation, but when I look at some parts and some slide and some explanation he made, that was amazing. And yeah, and as Professor Somro mentioned it, I'm sure some of audience will actually join this very interesting presentation. And thank to you, Parviz, my brother Imran Parviz Khan, and also thanks to Shahryar Khan and to my team, COSF team, just to follow up on such interesting webinar. And we hope to have more, collaborations for such webinars in different, of course, field subjects, inshallah, in the future.
Inshallah. Thank you, sir.
All right, so before we wrap up, we encourage all the attendees to take a moment to fill out our feedback form. And you can also stay connected with us and catch future webinars by following our Facebook and LinkedIn pages. Once again, thank you all for being with us today, and we look forward to seeing you guys in the next session of Science Chronicles.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Allah Hafiz.
Allah
Goodbye.
Hafiz. Allah Hafiz.